With us now is the chairman of the Democratic National Committee, Ken Martin. Mr. Chairman, I very much understand that Democrats do not like this redistricting. And I am open to arguments that say that this is a grubby political tactic. Democrats say they're going to retaliate. I don't see where Democrats are actually going to retaliate. California, they'd have to change the law in California and do all that stuff. Are Democrats really in a position to fight back on this?
Well, absolutely we are, whether it's in the courts, whether it's organizing on the ground, which we've been doing. The reality is what we've seen already is a craven power grab, an unconstitutional power grab in my mind. Look, the Constitution says very clearly that we have a decennial census. We draw the lines after that. The state legislatures are allowed to do that, but it does not give them the power to essentially redraw the lines whenever the hell they want to do it. And what Texas is doing right now is a craven power grab. And as I said, we're going to fight fire with fire. If Texas wants a showdown, which they clearly do, we're going to give them the showdown. And I've talked with a number of Democratic governors around the country, and as you can tell, they're already preparing to follow suit here. You know, the reality is this was all done by Greg Abbott on the request of Donald Trump. They used flood relief as the reason for actually holding this special session. You know how many hearings they've had on flood relief? One. You know how many hearings they've had on actually changing the map? More than 7 at this point. And it's just shameful. At this point, those flood victims deserve a state that's actually focused on them, not on political games.
Another thing I've noticed in this, though, is people talk, I heard Gavin Newsom, I think, say rigged, the rising star state senator out there, Tallarico, talking about rigging elections. I know that it's why it would be dubious, but they've done it before, right? This was a Tom DeLay move back in 2003. I believe they did it after the other census. This is a thing that Texas has done. This wouldn't be a rigged election.
Listen, it was wrong then, and it's wrong now.
Okay.
Right? At the end of the day, just because they did it in the past doesn't mean that they're allowed to do it in the future. You know, there are serious constitutional questions here, as well as voting rights violations. So with this new map that they put forward, there's no doubt that this is going to be highly litigated. This is a craven power grab. And why again, Chris? Because at the end of the day, they know they're going to lose in 2026 the House majority. And so what they're trying to do is rig the map in advance of that. So we're going to do everything we can, as I said, to fight back.
But if the Republicans win, if this is upheld, it won't be a rigged election, right?
No, listen, again, the courts now are controlled by the far right. At the end of the day, let me say this, Chris.
Okay.
Truly, it is a craven power grab. They do not have the ability to actually do this. The Constitution does not provide for this. It's serious voting rights violations, and we're going to fight fire with fire.
All right. Okay, so good news. It's a good news, bad news story for Democrats in polling this week. New Gallup numbers came out. I think we can show the full screen. I believe the graphic exists, according to Caleb Parker, exists in the world. There it is. U.S. party affiliation. This is from Gallup. Democrats had slid into being the outright minority party. Democrats, for most of our lives, have been the plurality party in the country. So this is, I'm sure, a welcome return for Democrats to bounce back up. And it's something, that fall off is something is not untypical after a losing election. So that was good news. Here's the bad news. These are the Pew Research numbers, the partisanship numbers from Pew that talk about partisanship among young men, 18 to 29. Those are, I believe the psephological word is bananas numbers. Typically, young men are a little bit more Republican than young women, but that is way out. Now, we know Democrats are talking about the manosphere, and Democrats are going, we got to get our own Joe Rogan, we got to do all this stuff. What do you think is actually going on here, and why young men have moved so much toward the Republican Party?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right here, which is, you know, I'm a father of 2 boys, 22 and 20, right? And there's no doubt. I think, you know, part of this, as we zoom out a little bit outside of politics, is this epidemic of male loneliness, right? Particularly with young men who are feeling really left behind, feeling like they don't have as much opportunity, feeling like they can't actually build wealth and success for themselves. And, you know, I think we have to acknowledge that that was part of our challenge as a Democratic Party, frankly. We stopped giving people a sense that we were fighting for them and for their future. And so it's not just where we go, and we could talk about that, the manosphere, Joe Rogan, all those pieces of how we actually communicate where people are getting their information matters as much as what we're saying and what we're standing for. Because I believe part of the challenge for us as Democrats is that we did not connect with young people, and particularly young males, and give them a sense that their better days are ahead of them, and that the Democratic Party is actually the party that gives them the best opportunity for success. That means, you know, talking about wealth and prosperity. That means talking about the American dream. That means talking about, you know, giving people a shot to actually build businesses and wealth and climb the economic
What
ladder.
about wedge issues? Because Republicans made a lot of hay out of trans sports and wokeness and all of that stuff. And I've heard a lot of Democrats acknowledge that was a problem. Do you think that was part of the problem?
Well, what I would say is, you know, look, we are a party that needs to focus on, you know, getting back to an economic message that gives people a sense that we're fighting for them. But we don't need to abandon our values. We've been the party fighting for the working class and the poor, but we are also the party that's always fought against discrimination, bigotry, harassment, and people being bullied out of the conversation. We'll continue to do that, right? But I think what we have to do as a party, we have to have an economic agenda that, again, speaks to people's anxiety in this country right now. So many people are feeling like they're being left behind and forgotten. We got to get back to basics, and we got to focus on an economic agenda.
Do you remember this lady? I want you to hear this from the former Vice President Kamala Harris.
And I know you're not here to say, I told you so. But would you like to?
You are correct that I did predict a lot of it. But, Stephen, what I did not predict was the capitulation.
Now, when I heard that, I thought, I think she's kind of talking about some Democrats, too. And then I thought about what Cory Booker said when he was speaking on the Senate floor. So now listen to that guy.
This, to me, is the problem with Democrats in America right now, is we're willing to be complicit to Donald Trump. It's time for Democrats to have a backbone. It's time for us to fight.
I think, as the kids would say, that's big mad. And he wasn't big mad in an abstract way. He was talking about a specific piece of legislation that Catherine Cortez Masto, his Democratic colleague from Nevada, was a co-sponsor of, to increase police funding and to support police. And she had to take to the New York Times. She talked to the New York Times, and she said, "Why would you throw out good legislation that's going to benefit everyone across the country? That doesn't make sense. Winning means we've got to win these swing states and focus on those swing voters and what matters to them, and talk to them, and that we're addressing the issues they care about." Now, that sounds like something you just said. That sounds like something you just said, which is you got to go to where people are. I understand the frustration that Senator Booker feels, and a lot of younger Democrats feel that there's not enough happening. Talk about this divide, right? When you have Democratic senators openly feuding in this way, something is going on. Talk about it.
Well, I don't think there is a divide. I mean, look, there's always dust-ups like this on the floor of the Senate, as you know, Chris.
Okay,
you know
okay.
Our party is unified right now across the board, right? We're fighting to make people's lives more affordable. We're fighting to make sure that people have access to health care. We're fighting to make sure that we fix this rigged and broken system that clearly is not working for the American people. And part of that fight requires, as Cory Booker said, all of us to stand up in this moment and use every lever of power we have to fight for the American people, right?
But they can't both be right.
Well, sure they can. I mean, look, there's differences on policy, for sure. And, you know, at the end of the day, you know, that's who we are as a party. And we should get back to having differences in you know, government and acknowledge